Hello there, happy innovators. How are you doing this time around, huh? How are you doing? Here we are at the 50th episode of the Singularity Podcast. I can't believe it. I'm finally here. 50 episodes. Number 50. And I gotta say, I'm particularly proud that I've made it this far. And it seems to me that with each different episode I've released, little by little, I've gained a larger audience. Ever so slowly, but it did happen. And I'm grateful for that because, there really are no guarantees with this kind of thing. It's really easy to get it wrong. And trust me, I've had a lot of experience with getting it wrong. But for one reason or another, you've stuck with me. And slowly over the course of the past couple of years or so, I've managed to grow this little podcast into something. Is it on the level of, other major podcasts? No. But you know what? It doesn't really need to be in order to be enough for me. So, having said that, I want to share with you today maybe a few things maybe, okay? I decided that probably for this episode, I should share with you a list of people, or let's just say names, that have been what I would call a hero to me. Okay? My heroes, the people that inspire me. Okay? I'm going to do a little tribute, a little tip of the hat to a few select names. Actually, it's kind of a long list. I actually sat down and wrote it all down. And like I said, it's a little bit longer than maybe I had hoped, but I guess that's a good thing, right? Because that means that I'm inspired by a lot of different people. So, maybe what I should do is start with, just out of the sake of tradition, right? Maybe what I should do is start with the definition of hero. Okay, so why don't you grab a sip of your coffee? I'll grab a sip of mine really quick. And I'll grab my handy dandy heavy book, my new Oxford American Dictionary, an excellent source of information, trusted, at least by me. Okay, so here we go. Hero, 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 a person, typically a man, who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. Okay? There's a couple other definitions here, but they don't really apply to the point that I'm trying to make today. So we're going to omit those from this podcast. But I think what I'm also going to look up is the word inspiration, because that's really what we're talking about today. Not so much someone being a hero per se, but being an inspiration to me. And there's quite a few, like I said, so let's look up inspiration. Okay, so here it is, the definition for inspiration. inspiration, inspiration. The process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially to do something creative. Perfect, isn't it? It's exactly what we should be talking about here today. Inspiration. Okay, so I guess I can start this conversation today by saying that I do, many different kind of creative things, and probably for each one of those creative endeavors I take on, there are probably, a short list of different people that would inspire whatever it is I'm working on. Like, for instance, if I'm recording a guitar track, okay, there may be, a few people few guitar players that I would cite as an inspiration to me, you know, kind of like the people you keep in your mind, you know, while you're doing something, or like maybe when you see these people doing what they do, it inspires you to go do what you do. And so I would kind of have to break it up into like categories, right? So I'll be talking about, let's say, for instance, I'm going to talk about first, let's see, well, there's a lot of musical influences, and they're all very different, and they all inspire me, you know, in different ways. So I should probably start there, you know, and if I had to start with one particular inspiration, let's see. Well, when it comes to music, okay, just music in general, not a particular instrument, just music that inspires me, okay? There are two artists that I would have to talk about. One would be U2, because they are probably my biggest influence. And then the second I would have to say is Enigma, Michael Cretu from Enigma, and Enya, the singer, songwriter, performer. So we'll start with U2. Why is U2 an inspiration to me? I'll tell you what. This is why. Because back in the day when U2 first came out, and this is something that a lot of people probably have either forgotten or they're completely just unaware of, okay? But at the time when U2 first came out with like the Boy album or October, okay, and maybe even like the War album, they were better than everyone else, period. Their music was different, it was fresh, it sounded better than everyone else, it had more heart and soul. Bono was singing about spiritual things and, like, you know, the spiritual struggle, and that related to me quite a bit. And I'm sure you can probably imagine why, but I'll get into that more later in later episodes, you know, the spiritual thing. But U2 represented, to me at least, for the first time, you know, to a young man, a young musician who believed in God and loved God and believed in Jesus and wanted to do the right thing, at least was trying to do the right thing or trying to be a good person, right? They represented to me how it should be done, and how if it's done right, it's better than everything else. And that was really how I felt about that band, probably all the way up to maybe like Achtung Baby. Like, they just dialed it in so well that it was not like surprising to me that they became like the next Rolling Stones, like the next big, huge band in America, or really all over the world. But I lived in America, so we'll say America. You know, these guys were reaching all the way into the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, like right into my brain. And, you know, they had me concerned about, you know, Belfast and, you know, the goings on in Ireland, you know, like I cared, you know, which is kind of funny and amazing to think about, isn't it? Like, I really cared, you know, like I felt Sunday, Bloody Sunday, you know, I really felt the passion and the power, you know, but, and, you know, really with U2, there are so many songs they did that really just blew me away. You know, they were one of those bands, like I've mentioned before, but I'll mention it again because it's worth mentioning again. They were one of those bands where when they released a new song, like each time, it was better than the last. Like, they got better and better and better. Like, I remember hearing Gloria for the first time and just being astounded at how awesome the music sounded, but also how powerful it was, like what he was saying and what he was singing about. But then, you know, Fast forward a little bit and you get to, you know, like I said, Sunday Bloody Sunday, or I Threw a Brick Through a Window. Like, what a great song. Like, what he's singing about. Or Surrender. Like, what he's actually singing about, you know, on top of this completely revolutionary, unbelievable sound that band had. I mean, it was just amazing. And then you go to, like, you know, Where the Streets Have No Name. I mean, come on. It's like, if you ask me, okay, if you ask my opinion, which, you know, nobody is, but I'll give it to you anyway. If you asked my opinion, Where the Streets Have No Name is the perfect song. I mean, there just isn't a song that's better, in my opinion. It's got everything. It's got, you know, great drumming, creative drumming, probably the beginnings of techno music, if you listen to it closely and you think about when it came out. Excellent guitars. I mean, oh my gosh, it was like the Edge had said it himself. Like, when he wrote the riff for Where the Streets Have No Name, he like jumped up and down and like was punching into the air. Like, he finally came up with this amazing riff that would probably be the greatest one he ever wrote, and it would probably define him forever as one of the greats, you know. You may disagree with me, but man, I'll tell you what, I don't care, because a lot of people have disagreed with me over the years about this, and it goes in one ear and out the other, okay? So, there you go. U2, number one on the list, no question. And as far as drumming is concerned, there is no drummer in rock and roll history that influenced me more than Larry Mullen Jr., okay? And I have argued with other drummers and other musicians for, well, let's see, about 35 years now, okay? And I'll tell you what, you will not find, in my opinion, a drummer in rock and roll history that was more creative and inventive than Larry Mullen Jr. Now, admittingly, I would say a little more in the beginning of his career rather than the later. I mean, a lot of the time now, when he's laying down beats, it's really kind of some rehashed version of what he's already done. But he's the one who did it originally, so he can go ahead and repeat it all he wants, because he really is, in my opinion, one of the most unsung songwriter drummers. You know, he wasn't fancy, he wasn't flashy, but he had really good ideas and he had really good taste. And his drums not only serve the song, but at the same time, they're really colorful and really inventive and unusual. Okay, and if you don't believe me, if you disagree with me, go back and listen to the song The Unforgettable Fire by U2. Okay? Put your headphones on, press play, and just listen to what he's doing on the drums. It's very unusual, but there could be nothing else that would fit as well behind that music. I mean, it's just amazing to me. I listen to that song. I listen to U2, The Unforgettable Fire, probably once a month, every month, just to get a reminder of what's possible. Okay? Like, if you ask me, okay, it's really, it was a turning point. It was a game changer for me as a drummer, and it continues to be, because as far as I'm concerned, nobody has written a drum part for a song that would match that, in my opinion. Although Where the Streets Have No Name is very close, but The Unforgettable Fire is probably the best example. Okay, so there you go. U2, boom, done. You know, just as a side note, I'm going to say this, because you hear this a lot, at least I do, okay, that Adam Clayton, the bass player from U2, kind of gets dragged through the mud a little bit, okay? Especially in the earlier part of their career, he was kind of regarded as kind of like a really low intellect bass player, like a low intellect songwriter, like just banging on one string, that kind of thing. But okay, I play bass a little bit. Okay, I don't quite understand that. I listen to his bass lines in their songs, and they're amazing. They're so well done, and they're not always, subtle. Like a lot of the time, especially in the earlier part of their career, his bass lines were kind of featured in songs. I mean, think about New Year's Day. Think about that. I mean, that bass line, that right? I mean, that is like, it's iconic now. Well, let me tell you, I remember when that song was new. It was like the first time I ever heard New Year's Day by U2. Can you imagine? I remember the day, do you? I remember the first time I heard it, and it was like, what is this? Man, this is awesome. And then, of course, you had the guitar solo, right, in New Year's Day. Oh my gosh. To this day, there are 2 guitar solos that I can recall in my mind that really stood out more than any others, okay, to this day. And one of them is the guitar solo from New Year's Day by U2. I mean, the Edge actually makes the guitar scream and sing. He's not doing, noodling on the fretboard. He's playing emotions out of these notes. Like he's like squeezing them out of this guitar. Go back and listen to it. You'll see what I mean. It was really simple what he did, but has a guitar ever screamed like that before and just had emotion in it? And it was just 4 bars or 8 bars of music, but it was like, beautiful, so well done, so well executed. And just for the sake of maybe your curiosity, the second guitar solo that I would mention is, believe it or not, the guitar solo from Rock You Like a Hurricane by the Scorpions. Okay? That may sound funny to you, but go back and listen to the guitar solo from that song. Now, if you're a person who has ever picked up a guitar, okay, and you've attempted to play music on a guitar, you listen to that guitar solo, okay, I think it goes for a while, okay, maybe 8 bars or 16 bars, but it's like each set of 4 in this guitar solo, 16 bars. So you split that up into 4. You get 4, right? I can do my math. Each 4, the guitar solo goes into a different zone. So he goes against the rhythm. He goes with the rhythm. He goes slow and melodic, fast and, lightning speed, gunslinger fast, just a complete and total control and command of time, melody, and the instrument. And that may sound like I'm hyping it up. Do yourself a favor. Just go back and listen to the guitar solo, not the whole song, although the whole song's not bad. Go back and listen to that guitar solo from Rock You Like a Hurricane and really listen to what Matthias Jabs is playing. Okay? Incidentally, it's probably worth noting, The Edge and Matthias Jabs from Scorpions both played a Gibson Explorer. So make of that whatever you will. Because if you ask me, in my opinion, Gibson is where it's at. Okay, so next, let's see. Who else do I consider to be a musical inspiration? Well, at this point, it's probably really obvious to most people that, Robert Smith and The Cure, right? I mean, come on. It's like, I haven't done a very good job of, concealing that. Although I haven't really tried to either. But, I did a whole episode, on Disintegration and, Plain Song. I did a cover version of Plain Song. I mean, when that album came out, when Disintegration came out, it just changed everything for me. I could see the future of what music would sound like. It was really that different to me, and really that much more larger. The bandwidth was wider, That's kind of how I imagined it anyway. The formative years of my life, before I played music, before I really had any kind of grasp of any instrument or anything like that, I would have to say that ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne, definitely a hero of mine, definitely an inspiration. I'll tell you what, recently I saw a concert with Electric Light Orchestra at Wembley Arena, okay? I think they sold out 3 nights in a row or some crazy number like that, okay? Just a huge amount of people that this music has touched, okay? And during this concert, okay, not only are the performances impeccable and perfect, okay, they're actually better than the record, okay? And more notably to me, okay, and this is why Jeff Lynne is an inspiration to me. When you watch that concert, okay, they show the band performing the song, and then they'll cut to the audience and them reacting to the music. And the audience reaction is more important to me than watching Jeff Lynne and Electric Light Orchestra performing the songs, because what you see when you watch that concert are people whose lives are so touched by the music, and they're so happy to be hearing it. They're sobbing, they're hugging each other, they're slow dancing, they're feeling the songs and reliving the memories and all of those things. It's kind of like that movie Field of Dreams, like, the people that can go back in time and just watch a baseball game on the sideline, right? The memories and the smells, and to feel it again. And oh my gosh, when you watch this Electric Light Orchestra concert, wow, you just see it. You just see it. So much so that I'm not even afraid to say this. I'm not afraid to admit it. Okay? I cry a little when I see people being that happy. And I wish and I pray that someday my music will make people feel that way. So true. You could ask my wife. She'd tell you, I kid you not. It actually kind of brings me to tears watching people have that much fun. Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne, one of my biggest heroes and one of my biggest inspirations. When I hear their music, okay, I think to myself a couple of things. One, I had a great childhood, okay? The 70s and the 80s were actually pretty damn good for a kid to grow up, right? But I also think about how Beatle-esque Electric Light Orchestra is, and how they are kind of like a continuation of what the Beatles might have sounded like if they continued. And just for your information, Jeff Lynne from ELO was actually endorsed by John Lennon as being the continuation of where the Beatles had left off. That's a fact. That's a fact. So, but I also think how magnificent they sound. I mean, the production. Oh my gosh, come on, who would disagree? It's just top shelf, man. You can't get better production than that, if you ask me. And I guess if you ask John Lennon, too. Okay, I'm going to get a sip of my coffee here. I suggest you should either pour yourself a cup if you haven't already and go ahead and take a sip of yours. Kind of like a little intermission. Hang on. Oh my goodness. The best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. Okay, so where were we? Jeff Lynne, right? ELO? I guess that kind of rolls into this next artist that I consider to be inspirational to me, and that artist is Tom Petty. Now, I like Tom Petty's music, okay? I do. He has so many great songs. They're really good, but that's not really what inspires me about Tom Petty. What inspired me about Tom Petty was his attitude, okay? I think that he embodied the perfect attitude when it comes to being a musician, a recording artist. You know, he just had it together more than anyone else. He had his head in the right place, his heart in the right place. Obviously, he was talented. And you know what? When you go back and you listen to the interviews of people talking about Tom Petty, one thing is for sure, okay? He treated everyone with respect and dignity, all the way from the sound guys, the guitar player, to the bus drivers. Everybody got treated with dignity and respect. Bam! Instant inspiration to me. That is what it's all about. Amen. Tom Petty, right? Okay. Onward we go. This list of inspirational people to me. Mike Bostwick. The guy from PC3, pipe choir, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff, right? This is what inspires me. I'll tell you what. Lately, I've been listening a lot to the Cocteau Twins. Oh my gosh. I rediscovered this band. Oh, maybe a couple years ago now. I mean, I grew up listening to them. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of friends who really liked them. And I'll be honest with you. Back in the day, they were okay. They were artsy. They were weird. I could take them or leave them, you know. But man, about a couple years ago, somehow, I don't know, I stumbled across a Cocteau Twins song. Which one was it? Probably Heaven or Las Vegas, you know, like one of their hits or something on YouTube. And, you know, it just came into my space. You know, it started to play. You know how YouTube does that with that autoplay, you know? You just let it roll. I like to do that sometimes because you never know what you're going to get. And, you know, on comes, I am pretty sure now, yeah, it was probably Heaven or Las Vegas. And, you know, I just thought to myself, well, one, this is one of the most unusual songs I've ever heard. I mean, it's just so unusual. Her voice, you know, the approach, the lyrics, the music, the beat, everything is so unique. And also, too, though, there was this sense of, and there still is, by the way, this sense of joy and refreshing happiness that comes over me when I hear anything now by the Cocteau Twins. I mean, I'm going back into their catalog, and it's just song after song after song after song of this great, amazing, beautiful sound. You know, which reminds me of, brings me back to that idea of Enya, you know, and Enigma too, but probably more Enya in the melodic regard, you know. Enya is one of the most amazing recording artists ever, and I'm going to tell you why I think so. There are a lot of people who will roll their eyes at me about this, you know, but I don't care. I don't care. I know what Enya is. I know what she's doing, and let me tell you something, folks. It's nothing short of miraculous and amazing what this woman is doing, okay? She is technically by herself, okay? She does have a studio engineer that works with her and does do some co-songwriting and those kinds of things, okay? But for the most part, Enya is alone making this music. And I don't know, maybe like if you look at her level of success and the quality and the level of her songwriting and recording, it's probably unsurpassed, okay? Her technique of layering her vocals, much like Cocteau Twins, I guess, but whoa, on a much higher level. And, you know, this is a woman who, has maybe the best business model ever in the history of professional recording and selling music. I mean, she is the definition of success on every level. But we won't even get into that, really. We're just going to talk about her music and what she does and how she's so consistent, okay? When you hear a new Enya song, you know it's her right away. It kind of sounds like everything else she's done, and she doesn't care. She's not trying to, reinvent the wheel with every album. She might get different colors, go for a different feeling or vibe or whatever, right? But Enya is doing her own thing, okay? And she's doing it better than anyone else is. And let me tell you, there are armies of musicians, singers that are trying to follow her path, and they can't do it. They just can't. They get close. Some of them get real close. Not close enough. Not close enough. I imagine this career for Enya never really ending until she dies. There will never be a slump. She releases an album, and the same people like myself who have bought every single album she puts out on the day she releases it, okay, we wait for the release of a new one, and there you go. It's like you get what you pay for every time. And yeah, it's not like every album is this, a separate odyssey of, musical exploration, but you know what? They're all good, and they're all her, and you can hear it. She does this thing with her voice, man. She layers her vocals, right? And just in these humongous, lush pads of her voice, like singing these notes and just layer after layer. I can't imagine, okay? I cannot imagine how tedious that process must be. I just can't. I can't imagine how many tracks she must use on one song. It's got to just be unprecedented. It's got to be like just, you probably wouldn't even believe what you're hearing or seeing if you're in the studio with her. This incredibly difficult and tedious process for every single track on her records. Just, I can't imagine. And no wonder it takes her 5 years or something to make an album, but each time she releases a new album, it's not like her audience disappeared. They're waiting with bated breath, for the next Enya album. Okay, so I've talked about Enya, right? And I can't talk about Enya and, how much she inspires me without talking about Enigma and Michael Cretu and what he's doing. Now, the commonality that Enya and Michael Cretu share, although their music is very different, okay, and I like them for different reasons, really, both of them are a single person who makes the music, okay? It's not a band, it's not a group of musicians, it's one person, one mind, one thought, one breath from, each one of these people, Enya and Michael Cretu. They share that endeavor of doing something by yourself. And of course, as you know by now, I'm kind of doing the same thing. Okay, so I listen to what they do, It, filters through my brain. I understand what they're doing and the complexity of what they're doing. And of course, they're very different. So I take different pieces of inspiration from each one of them. But in the end, it's one person doing it all. And I really find that inspiring. Like when I hear Enya, okay, I wait for her album to come out. I buy it. Same thing with Enigma. I wait for the release date. When it's released, I buy it immediately. And, I gotta say honestly, okay, lately, Enigma, it's kind of been a little bit sketchy with what he's been releasing over the past couple albums, but it's still him, still doing it the way he does it, and it still inspires me. And the same goes for Enya, who, by the way, is probably due for a new album pretty soon. So, you know what? I guess what I'm going to have to do with this podcast is I'm going to have to split it up because, man, I haven't even gotten through half of the list yet. I hope it's not boring for you. I hope that you're actually, getting something from this, but maybe not. I don't know. You never know with this kind of stuff. You just kind of put it out there and see how hard it bounces off the wall, So anyway, I'll stop here for now. I'm going to continue with the next podcast of my list of inspirational heroes. Okay? So for now, this is Mike Bostwick from Pipe Choir Records signing off. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy.